Welcome into ProBox TV. We discuss all things when it comes to ProBox TV's fighters and fights. You've been following boxing at all. You know there was a major controversy. Gervonta Davis and ProBox TV fighter Lamont Roach Jr., a controversial majority draw. Earlier this week, we laid out the case for Gary Jonas, the owner of ProBox TV, to appeal the decision in New York. We laid out our case completely. A very different kind of show today. In studio, Jimmy Smith, alongside the champs, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi, Robert Garcia, trainer extraordinaire, joining us via Zoom. But more than that, in studio, we have Lamont Roach Jr. himself, alongside his father and trainer, of course, Lamont Roach Sr. Gentlemen, got to start with you. When it comes to the fight, not just the performance, not just the controversy, all of it leading up, everybody's saying you didn't deserve the opportunity, you were a huge underdog, that criticism leading into the fight, how hard was it to focus and get ready to face a guy like Gervonta Davis?
Truthfully speaking, it wasn't really hard to focus. I've been an underdog before, obviously not a huge underdog, but when you go back to the Jamel fight, the world title fight, I was an underdog. When you go back to the Hector fight, I was an underdog. Very disrespectful underdog, honestly. So now when we get here to the Tank fight, it's just like, all right, here we go again. I feel like when my back is against the wall or against the ropes, it's like, it's time to show up. So it wasn't really hard for me to focus because all I had to do was do what I normally do. And I know that that was going to surprise or shock or shut everybody up.
Paulie, what I'm curious about, you talked earlier in the fight, we're discussing this before we went on air, you talked about the scoring criteria of a lot of the judges went with Gervonta Davis early on in the fight. You thought that was unfair, inappropriate. You didn't score it that way at all, Paulie.
Well, I feel like a lot of times there's this misconception. Well, but in reality, it's just something. I call them like excuses, reasons to favor the favorite, the A side, so to speak. So in the early rounds, you see Lamont pressing forward, but there's not a lot of action going both ways, and you're seeing that the judges are giving Davis rounds, what, just for showing up? There's not a lot of action going both ways. And typically, if you really look at Gervonta Davis fights, he typically does give away the early rounds anyway, right? So all of a sudden, just because Lamont is not super active, he's not getting the rounds because he's stepping up. Usually, if there's nobody doing anything, a guy stepping forward will get the round, right? I mean, so I think this whole thing about you got to take the title from the champion, especially the way the criteria of the rounds early on was being scored, it's sort of overblown at times. You know, I really think that, you know, you got to watch a fight for what it is, and you got to hold the same criteria all the time. And I don't think that was done in this fight, because then later on in the fight, when Lamont does come back, he winds up with a draw instead of the win.
What are your thoughts on that? What were you thinking early on in the fight, those first few rounds? When, I mean, I saw you were tight, you were controlled, good counter punching, you were trying not to give him any opportunities. I thought you were winning rounds. What was your thought on it?
I thought I was winning rounds too.
Yeah.
I wonder if they were giving. This is so, like the criteria for boxing. Okay, if a guy is coming forward, or if a guy is controlling the ring, or whatever the case may be, using ring generalship to box or anything like that, was he outboxing me? Was he using the ring to set me up with certain shots or anything like that? No. I was pressing the action. He was being cautious. And, I was being cautious too, but I was pressing the action because I'm trying to score. I thought if I didn't score, that I wouldn't win the round. I tried to score. I was trying to score. I was landing. I wasn't landing. I was being active.
Also, Lamont, I also thought you were establishing the real estate battle.
For sure.
I thought you were taking control of the ring. You know, that can happen without a lot of punches being thrown. You know, you can see who's taking control of the ring. And if you notice in the early part of the fight, and in the majority of the fight in general, you see Lamont is taking control of the ring. I really rate whose dance we're dancing, right? Whose fight we're fighting. Because a lot of times, one guy wants to fight one fight, one guy wants to fight another way. They were marching to the beat of Lamont's drum, so to speak.
Well, that's what a ring general is. That's you mentioned exactly. So I got a question for both of you guys, actually, for Coach as well. In terms of the strategy you guys employed. Now, the thing about fighting Tank is got big power, right? Everybody's worried about the power. And generally, he hits guys, they move. Either they're evading him, they get pushed back. With you, you didn't break position, which allowed you to stay in the pocket and counter, which no one's ever been able to do with him. Was that going into the fight? That's the game plan, irregardless of whether you knew that what it was gonna be like being in there with a guy. Because listen, 8-ounce gloves are 8-ounce gloves. Yeah, I know you've been in with a guy, whatever. Guy can punch, but you never know until you get hit with those 8s on.
Yeah.
But was that the game plan? And then you got there, and it's like, oh, this is working. All right.
Well, you can see Lamont set the tone off the break. Like Paulie said, we controlled in real estate. We established ourselves in the fight. So I thought we was winning the early rounds based off that. But I said it all along, Tank ain't never been into a ring with a full package fighter like Lamont. And he was going to have to think a little bit more than he think in the past. And yeah, we was right there. We want to see what his full arsenal is. We told him to bring his tool bag because we was bringing ours. So he had the opportunity to capitalize on some of the things we done, and we had to capitalize on his. But yeah, that was part of it.
You brought a tool bag, you brought a lunch bag, you packed dinner, you were ready for the whole night. So
Robert, I have to ask you as a trainer, what'd you think of the early going in that fight, man? What'd you think of the way Lamont Roach was approaching you?
Lamont looked very, very comfortable. He looked very secure, very sure of what he was doing. He followed his game plan. He did exactly what nobody has been able to do. I think he was in control. But yes, we also have to understand that, you know, when you're going against the champion, especially a superstar like Tank, you have to do a little extra to maybe get the rounds. Those rounds that are kind of close, most of the times they go to the champion, especially somebody like Tank, you know, that's the superstar, the one that's doing millions just in the gate, doing great pay-per-view numbers. You know, that's the difference. But in a fair score, I thought he was in control. I thought Lamont Roach was in control and did his job and had a perfect game plan. And like I told him after the fight in the hotel, I told him, you surprised me and surprised the world, and you should have been champion. He should have walked out of the ring with that belt.
And Robert, I'll agree, but I'll push back a little bit. I don't think it's necessarily the champion. I think it's just the side that the politics want to win the fight. Because I always bring back my own experience. If that's the case, what we're talking about, you got to do a little bit more to take the title from the champion. You got to do it. Then I shouldn't have lost the WBA welterweight title to Adrian Bronner. I mean, if you got to do a little bit more, is it a little bit more to take the title from the champion, or is it a little bit more to take?
When you're going against somebody like when you're going against, when you're going against somebody like Tank, is the difference. That's what I mean.
That has to be called out because that's not the way it should be, man. If it's a sport, it's a sport.
It shouldn't, but that's the way it is. Yeah.
Something I noticed early on, and you guys can push back on this if you saw it differently. It looked to me that Tank went out of his normal style pretty early. It's like round 3 or 4. You saw him, he was doubling up that left hand a lot. He was being more active. He was expending more energy than he's used to. He's normally very, very calm, trying to set things up, getting himself in position. This wasn't that way. He seemed like he had to all right, I got to steal these rounds because they're too close. Did you guys feel that? I know you feel an aura in a ring. Did you feel like he was working harder than he wanted to?
At times, yeah. Especially when he was trying to find certain shots. It's like we were doing a lot of talking back and forth.
I want to
ask
about that next. Yeah.
It's like I know that he was trying to steal. I know that he was trying to steal because I was establishing the real estate. I was popping my jab. I was making them think. I was making them do a lot of things. And the fact that he knew, well, he figured he had to be cautious after he threw certain punches as well because he was worried about counter shots.
You know, another thing, one thing I noticed too is, like the champ said, he's coming out of pocket a little earlier than normal, right? Usually he's kind of comfortable giving ground and sort of letting you establish yourself. But usually when he does that, he's sort of allowing the other guy to get comfortable, open up. You never fully opened up, so he couldn't get comfortable because he's like, usually he's letting you open up and he's like, all right, I'm gonna set him up for this. You know, he's opening up, he's getting a little comfortable, and it's like you stayed in tight. You stayed this. That's why I said this was such a psychological battle. You know, this was such an IQ fight, and you sort of realized that, and it created that mental pressure on him where he sort of had to come out of pocket. He had to do things that he didn't want to normally do, and you could see it. He started the shoulder barge at a certain point, you know, like he ends up taking the knee later. All that is just a mounting psychological craziness going on in his head because you're staying calm and you're not giving him what he wants to see.
Right. I think so for sure. And like it goes to when we were talking about pre-fight. He never been in the ring with a guy like me, with my demeanor, with my skill set, with my ability to punch with a guy. I don't even know because I know he's been in there with punchers that technically punch harder than me, or from what we saw.
You don't leave him alone. He never been in with a guy who he hits and he leaves him alone, and he doesn't leave him alone.
Yeah.
He threw, he got comfortable in terms of opening up, and you didn't leave him alone.
He's used to
he's
guys,
like, what do I do now?
He's used to being able to domesticate guys.
Definitely.
He couldn't do that with you.
And I was too defensively responsible too.
What I'm
fire
curious,
back.
yeah, the great Jose Torres, custom auto trained fighter, once said this about Mike Tyson. He said, when an intimidator fails to intimidate, he becomes intimidated. If the psychological tricks in the games don't work, at a certain point, they come back on you. And Chris, you said it when we were talking about this fight. Coach, I want to ask you, Chris said he felt uncomfortable. He said, man, Tank seems uncomfortable.
I was saying that the whole second half of the fight.
Yeah, Chris, when we were talking about this, he said, is that what you felt as a coach? Like, man, Tank doesn't like this, what we're doing. But until round 9, which we will get into, did you feel that comfort level, Tank didn't have it? What was your thought?
Yeah, I feel that way. You could hear me in the corner saying, be more physical with him inside and things like that. We a 15-round fighter, man. So we was prepared. We envisioned a lot of this already taking place before it happened. A lot of people didn't see it, but the fight kind of like pretty much went how we expected it to go. From run 1 to 12. You know what I'm saying? So Tank take none away. Like they said, he had a bad performance. I think Tank fought a good fight. He just was in there with a better guy that night. He did some great things in there as well, but we offset it with what we were doing. You know what I'm saying? He didn't do nothing that we didn't expect.
Yeah. Robert, I want to bring you in and ask you this question about, from the outside as a trainer, that idea of if I stay in the right range, if I stay in the right frame of mind, which Lamont did, he'll unravel after a while because he's used to physically overpowering guys. Is that what you saw in the fight yourself?
Look, that's exactly what happened. He's in the ring in every one of his fights, and he's dominating. After he picks up a few rounds, and then he starts dominating. This time he was just in there with a better man than him, and he kind of also lost it a little. Where he found a little bit of taking the knee and all that. It was because he was frustrated. There's no other question that's what happened. He was frustrated. He was in there with a better man, and that's what we got the fight. That's what we got.
What I'm curious, we will get into the controversy in just a moment. Right before that, I got to ask, just like Champ wanted to know, and Apollo, I know you want to know, what were you guys...
What were you saying?
What was the trash talk in there? Because you were answering right back. You're both from the same place, both from D.C. You fought as amateurs. Was there a little... You're not going to scare me. You're not going to, intimidate me. I see the smile on your face. What was going on in the ring? What was being said, man?
He was like, if I hit him with a little jab or whatever the case, that ain't nothing. Or if he hit me... or if I block a shot, I was like, oh, too slow. Or, you know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. Like, I'm like, it's okay.
Steve, though? What was he saying to the referee?
When I said to Steve?
No, what was he saying? He was
talking to the ref the whole time, too, yeah.
So one time, when I hit him on the break, he was like, get out of there. He said, stop holding. As soon as he said stop holding, I punched him. Mm-hmm. So he's like, how you gonna tell me to stop holding and let him punch me or something like that? Steve said, fight out of the clinch. Yeah. That's what we were going to do. He came in the back and was like, I'm going to let you fight out, especially if one arm is loose or whatever the case may be, as long as you're not holding and hitting. Mm-hmm. So when he said, get out of there, he got out of there without his hand up, and I punched him. So,
Coach, you had mentioned that you kind of knew this was kind of the way it was going to go, right? So, and Lamont, we spoke about this off air in terms of the history that you and Tank have. How much of that played into... one, the game plan, and then two, the mindset that you carried throughout the promotion of this fight? Because the confidence that you guys showed was genuine. It wasn't, you weren't putting up airs. You knew what the deal was. How much of that came down to, and we've seen this guy in the gym before, we've seen him in tournaments before, even when we were kids. And personalities, that stuff doesn't really change. You are who you are as a fighter, very, very young, and you just carry that with you.
Played a big role in it because I've been telling people it's familiarity on both sides, as well as they know us, we know them. And we've seen them too many times. They probably fought 75 of the same guys coming up in the amateur. I coached them in the National Golden Gloves. They fought twice. They sparred numerous times. And I knew how, every time they was in the ring, how that session went.
Familiarity breeds contempt.
Yeah. So it was some highly contested. Yeah, it was some highly contested. Some of the antics in the ring I seen before too. You know what I'm saying? They was going at it as kids. Just stopped around 16, but still, they still got some of those traits as men. So it played out kind of like how we thought it was. And
there's a lot of psychology when you're from the same region. In Europe, what we call soccer games from teams within the same city, derbies. And it's like derby. One team could be in last place, one team could be in first place, but when they play each other, because it just becomes a different psychology.
What did the Irish call it? Domestic dust-up?
Domestic dust-up, yeah. You know what I mean? Shoot, I can remember in my gambling days. When the Bengals would play the Browns, no
Yeah.
matter what
Yeah.
place everybody was in.
Yeah.
Dude, it was a tough game to bet. You know, so this thing kind of reminds me of that when you talk about what you just said, Coach, with the background and all that other stuff, people knowing the same people, you know, you got to go back, and you know, a lot of it comes into the psychology of the fight. It's really, really interesting how it always plays out in sport the same way.
Of course, the controversy we've been talking about all week and what the boxing community has been talking about all week, the knockdown that wasn't in round number 9. Gervonta Davis takes a knee, you landed a right hand, then 2 jabs afterward. What were you thinking when this happened? Were you surprised as everybody else? What was on your mind?
Man, I was surprised, man. I ain't gonna lie. Like I thought it was a 10-8. Like that's what really was going on. Like, but I was confused when he looked at the ref, but when he took the knee, I was like, and I grasped the concept that he was on the ground. I was like, that's a 10-8. Yeah. Simple. So I was like, all right, the ref started counting. While I'm looking at him, I'm like, the ref started counting. But I see him get up and go to the corner. So now I'm just like, all right, now I'm confused. I don't know what's going on.
Did you think he was stopping the fight? He had a towel in his hand.
To me, I didn't think he was stopping the fight because I was so focused on the ref counting. Like I didn't think he was stopping the fight, but then again, like when I look at him in the corner, I'm like, what is going on? Like I don't know. I don't know now. I just don't know what's going on. Besides the fact that I want this to be a knockdown because it should be.
And you asked him, right? Why you stopped?
Yeah, I asked him literally. I said, why you stop counting?
Now, to Lamont's point, you will see it and you will hear it. Him ask the referee to keep counting. Here it is.
It's got to be enough. What in the world is happening?
Nobody knows what's going on.
No one apparently has any idea what's going on. I got to know, Coach, you're in the corner. You got to be losing your mind at this point.
I was going crazy in the corner, man. Especially when I seen the other coach on the ring, and the inspector told me one time I got to look over there to see it. He tell me sit down. I'm yelling at him. Who you talking to? I'm coaching. Leave me alone. And he let this guy get up the ring and wipe his fighter down the middle of the round.
You even hear Morrow saying, what in the world is happening? And you see Steve looking at Gervonta like this.
He said, what's going on?
Crazy.
And then Lamont comes from the neutral corner and be like, keep counting.
Keep counting.
Nobody knew what was
Like
going
it's a
on.
knockdown.
That was mayhem.
Well, no, actually, Lamont knew what was going on. He said you should be counting. Keep counting.
bro.
Do your job.
It was a knockdown, clearly. He got hit with a right hand, bothered one eye, and a jab bothered the other eye. And he took a knee. You know what I'm saying? That's exactly what happened. And before that, like the first 20 seconds of the round, we started that round off good. If you go back and look at it, we had a real good round.
Which is why it's
It was a common,
that two
So I was
judges
like, oh, we in a
actually
good
gave
rhythm
Gervonta
right
the
now.
round 10-9.
So it's kind of like broke in a sense. You can't get a break like that and take a break. We was started that round off real good, and we finished it with the knockdown, and then get it on the cards.
I got to get the opinion of another coach, Robert Garcia. Robert, it was just inexplicable, the entire sequence, and we've gone over it all week, but this idea that there was a knockdown that wasn't called, then he leaves, and then his coach wipes his face off. Any one of those is at least a point. As a coach, what were you thinking, Robert?
Look, there was three different situations where 3 ways Roach should have won that fight. Took a knee, that was a standing 8 count, 100%. That was a knockdown. Then he turns and walks away. That the ref should have waved it off, and that should have been a TKO. And then his corner steps into the ring to wipe his face. That's a disqualification.
Yeah.
There's no way Roach shouldn't have walked out with that belt in his hands.
What I'm curious about, and you mentioned a little bit, psychologically, how do you get back into a fight where that should have been a 10-8, it wasn't called? As Robert said, it might have been a disqualification because his corner helped him out, not allowed to do that. You got to refocus and keep fighting. How hard was that in round number 9?
Okay, I'm gonna say it wasn't hard off the simple fact that, like my dad said, we seen the antics before in the fight going that way, so we geared to not let it throw us off. And it's like what we train to do is working.
And that's what I was just going to say. You're seeing him break in front of you.
Yes,
so
literally.
It's actually probably building confidence to close the show, right?
And also, like you said, you didn't think the fight was being stopped, so you never left fight mode.
Yeah, I never left fight
Matter
mode.
of fact, you see him breaking, your fight mode is increasing, right?
Yeah.
In the corner, the confidence level after that, because you want to say this fight should be over. How did his corner help him out? But you have to keep your guy motivated. Was there a lot of that? Hey, man, he's breaking down. Is that how you saw it? The way Chris is talking about it, is that how you saw it in the corner?
Yeah, I've seen as the fight, the momentum is getting bigger and bigger for us. So like, let's keep that momentum going, and eventually we're gonna break them all the way. or we going to just go on to a decision win.
And Coach, this goes back to that DC area, knowing everybody. You know the temperament of the guy in front of you already. So when you see these antics, you kind of realize, okay, I'm familiar with what's going on. We have this. We can win this fight. We're on our way, right?
Yeah, coming to the championship rounds, I was like, okay, we got him where we want him right now. So let's finish this off, son. That's what it was.
And I remember it's knowing the fighter, but knowing the corner too. He did tell me, he said he probably gonna come out a little harder the next round. They probably told him something. And then I guess when you go back and watch it, they did give him a little, like, you know.
I mean, they can see the fight slipping away. In the corner, you feel the energy in his corner. They're yelling at each other and everything. So that's also the sense of they know this is a problem.
Absolutely.
That emotional side at the end of the fight, great picture. You with your child holding him up, proud moment. Probably the greatest moment of your career would be Ann knew Gervonta Davis gets his first L because of you. They call it a draw. No one expected you to do as well as you did. But I hate this moral victory stuff. You're there to win.
Yeah,
You're a champion.
Definitely.
Not just the money, but the respect of handing Gervonta Davis his first loss. That was taken away from you because of round number 9. How did that feel in the moment?
It sucked. I ain't gonna lie, it sucked. Like you said, I'm not a moral victory guy, and I never was. I never will be. When I heard the first score for him, I honestly thought I was gonna get a split decision. I thought I was gonna get a split decision win. I was like, oh, it's coming home. When they said the first score for him,
which is crazy. The first score was 8-4, right? It was a wild.
It was
score.
7-5. It was 7-5 for
okay.
him.
Yeah,
Okay.
But I was like
15-13.
I was like, okay. I said, they coming back. If they announced the first score for him, I said, oh, I won. I said, I won.
The next two cards.
And the next two was gonna be Roach and then Roach. I already seen it. But then when they say 114, as soon as he said 114, I just shut down. I was like, man. It really took something out of me because without the knockdown or without the taking a point from running to the corner or whatever the case may be, I thought I won.
And he could have lost a point for that shoulder barge. Nobody's talking about that shoulder barge.
That
That was such a
intentional.
glaring part of the fight that nobody's talking about the shoulder barge. That's an intentional,
That's an
flagrant
intentional
foul.
foul.
That's a direct point. Even
sure.
that could have been a difference if you take a point there.
Not just as a coach, but as a father, to watch your son, to every outside observer, fight the fight of his life against the biggest opponent of his life, underdog, the idea that he shocked the boxing world, and yet we have a draw. How do you manage that? Because you got to be the rock for this guy. You're not only his coach, but his dad. You got to be the one, hey, you can keep going. How hard is that?
It was tough, you know what I'm saying, because we knew deep down, everybody in the corner thought we won the fight. We felt like we won it, to beat a guy that's considered pound for pound, one of the best in boxing, power puncher, and you put on a great performance like that. He went out and he was great that night, and we knew he was. He rose to the occasion. He was the underdog. People downed him. They talked about the fight, and he stepped up and showed the world what he's capable of. It's just that we finally got a platform and the right dance partner to showcase our skill level, and we did it. We did it. Now everybody's seeing it, but it doesn't take away. They think people happy with a draw. We wasn't happy with a draw. We was happy with our performance, but we wasn't happy that we got a draw because we know we was deserving winner of that fight. And then to come down to a technicality was an obvious call that's made tens of thousands times in boxing. You take a knee as a knockdown, even without a punch. But this time it was with a punch. It was so many fouls in that round that we didn't get. Could have made a difference, shouldn't have made a difference, but we should have been champion that night.
Last thing I want to ask you, Lamont, is what do you want to see happen next? You know it's been appealed by Gary Jonas. What do you want to see happen next in terms of not just the outcome, but next in your career?
Well, hopefully, hopefully the commission gets this right. Like I explained at first, it was a bummer. It was a bummer not being declared the winner on a technicality that could be righted. That wrong could be righted, obviously, in different ways, in different facets. And after that, I already signed my contract. My first contract is signed for immediate rematch, when there's a draw or if in the case of a draw or if I win. So I'm already contractually signed to a rematch. It's on him. And I hope we can get it done because I want to show the world again that wasn't a fluke.
That's what I was going to ask you, Lamont. To me, that was the best Lamont Roach I've personally seen. is there another level that's there to be shown? Is there more that I have to learn about Lamont Roach?
Trust me, it is, and I can't wait because I know that the second time around, he gonna come guns blazing, and that's really when it's gonna be.
I can't wait.
I'm excited. We're gonna get a better version of him. We're gonna get a better version of you. We're gonna get a rematch to a great fight, and I'm hyped now.
Can I add something to it?
Please.
Not only would it be the right thing to do, but it'd be right for boxing because this gonna set a precedent
thing to
that
do.
the underdog, the B side, you don't get favors and decisions can be made. They have a system in place to make the correction. They should do the right thing and make the right.
It's Rocky Apollo. The first fight is a draw.
But all boxing wants a
boxing.
rematch. Right? It's the talk of the town right now.
Robert, to get the trainer's perspective on it from the outside, what do you hope happens next?
I think I would love the commission to turn that decision around. Lamont should be champion. And even if they don't, the rematch, I'm excited about the rematch. Just seeing the champ and his coach, their confidence, their positive way, I think we're going to see a better fight. And I think we'll see a better version of Lamont Roach, and he will become champion.
As amazing as the first fight was, cannot wait to see a second one without the controversy, of course. For everybody here at ProBox TV, Lamont Roach, Jr. and Senior, thank you so much for joining us. Robert Garcia, thanks for your input at the desk. The champs, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi. I'm Jimmy Smith. Thank you so much for watching.